Hey guys, Josh here, and we have with us a brand new episode. You know our guest today from Dawsons Creek, where he played Jack Maphee. You know him from The Fosters, from Riverdale, where he plays Principal Holden Honey. You know him from the movie Final Destination, and so many other movies and shows out there. Guys, our guest today is Mr. Kerr Smith. We got to talk some fan questions. We broke down some details on what it was like behind the scenes and what it was like on Dawsons Creek, where he's at today with his co-stars from there. We talked about what it was like to be a part of that character that really transcended Hollywood and changed so much when it came to the television world. Guys, without further ado, let's get right to the interview. This is the show, and it starts right now.
Welcome to the show.
We have with us Mr. Kerr Smith. How you doing, sir?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for taking the time to join the show. Really appreciate it. Let's start right off. I put out some fan questions on Facebook and kind of wanted to see what kind of interest we had and where kind of things were at on Riverdale and the Fosters and Dawsons Creek. And I think most of our questions, probably about 100 of them, it seemed like came from Dawsons Creek. So let's start out with that. That was, I think, a really huge pulp culture kind of show that was there. How was it being a part of that show and just that whole ordeal joining it in the second season?
It was quite a ride. For me, it was, I just moved out to Los Angeles. This is back in 1998. And I was here for about 2 months and I ended up getting that job, which was we shot out in North Carolina. So I immediately moved back to the East Coast. I'd just come from New York City 7 weeks prior. So it was cool, man. I mean, it was a pretty fun ride. It was, because when I joined the show, I joined the episode 201, I think it was. They only did a half a season in that first year, and it was already becoming a big hit. And so what I walked into was just a complete chaos. It was just like, all of a sudden they're huge, because last year the first 13 episodes nobody knew what was going on, and then season 2 we've got like hundreds of people running around set, coming from all over the place to watch us do things. But it was a good experience, man. It was like being at camp, because it wasn't in Hollywood. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I really kind of enjoyed, that being out of the whole Hollywood scene and just living a relatively normal life out on the East Coast.
You had a character that definitely transcended, I guess, kind of Hollywood, maybe the best way I can put that. When it came to Jack Maphee, when you came into that role, did you know kind of the direction they were wanting to go with that character, or was it kind of a surprise as they, worked out storylines?
No, when I was hired to create a love triangle between Dawson and Joey. So no, the character was not gay. So it wasn't until, I think we followed that storyline for maybe 3 months, and then I'd say about a third of the way into season 2, Kevin Williamson, the creator of the show, takes me out to coffee. I could feel it coming. I don't know why. It's like, yeah. Because at that time, he was still in the closet, and he wanted to kind of come out with one of his characters, because every character on Dawsons Creek is a part of his personality. So I felt it coming. He goes, "Hey, Kerr, we want to go down a different avenue with Jack. Are you on board?" So I just told him, I said, "Look, give me a day or two. Just let me call a bunch of people that, I respect their opinion, and let me make a decision here." Because at that time, that was it's a pretty big decision. Nowadays, it's, who cares? It's not a big thing, which is why we did it.
Right.
So we're all really proud of what we did back then, because nowadays there's a gay character, at least one, on every television show, and nobody cares. It's just normal. It's fantastic.
When you joined the show, you were in your 20s, I believe, right?
I was in my late 20s, actually, 27, okay. 28. Yeah.
How was it kind of taking on that role? One, playing a high school character, which at the time was very, I guess, normal when, 90210 and everybody playing characters that were much younger than them. But how was it kind of joining that cast? Because some of your castmates were in that more younger age at that time.
I mean, most of my stuff was with Michelle, and I think she was 16 when I first got there. So, we were a solid 10, 12 years in difference. It was fine. You work with people of different ages all the time. And quite frankly, back then, I didn't really consider myself older. I just, was 16 at heart. So I guess that's what really counted.
being able, you talked about, you guys did that you guys did the storyline of having Jack be gay in the show, really to kind of drive, I guess, Hollywood in that direction and kind of make it not be a thing at all. But how was the backlash at that point, I guess, or kind of how things went for you and for the show, kind of, I know with WB and some of that, how did that all kind of play out for you during that time?
It was, especially shooting in North Carolina, and in a southern state like that, there was a lot of controversy, and a lot of people had a problem with it. I mean, I remember a few days where we had riots outside the studios there in Wilmington, North Carolina. So,
Wow.
for me, it was scary. I don't regret doing it at all. I'm very proud of what we did back then. But yeah, it was a scary time. I made sure, obviously playing a character like that back then, I made sure that in the hiatus I was taking projects of characters that were, very, very different than Jack, which is a great segue for you, because Final Destination would be,
Yep.
Carter Horton would be the character. That's exactly what I went after on my first summer break from Dawsons after season 2.
I was gonna say, that's a perfect transition into that. You took a character that was very a complete opposite of the Jack character. How was doing Final Destination? That movie on its own became kind of a cult, kind of classic, I guess is the best way to put that, and probably scared more parents than that going to airports during that time. But how was that project overall?
Going in, you never know what's going to happen. When I auditioned for that film, I remember going to the Fox lot. And the film at that time was called Flight 180. Terrible title. The script was good, but the title was terrible. We all knew it, and they came up with this better name later, which is perfect name for it. But once we started filming, and you get a flavor of what's going on and how they're putting this thing together, then you start to realize, okay, this could be pretty sweet. This thing could be pretty good. Now, that I think was going to do 5, 6, 7 films later, no, you never do. But it ended up being a tremendous franchise, and it's still going strong. I think they're making number, I want to say 6 right now.
I think 6 would be the one getting ready to come out.
Yeah.
How has that kind of, I guess, kind of transferring back and forth kind of to those roles? How did that really affect? Was that kind of an easy process for you during that to kind of be able to switch in and out of the roles itself and kind of dive in?
One of the things that I had when I talked to Kevin, I said, yes, I will play this role. One of the things I was very explicit about was that I'm not going to play any gay stereotypes whatsoever. I'm going to play him straight. And he agreed. He said he thought it was a great idea, and we didn't want to, go into the whole, you can guess all the stereotypes that you could play. I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to be very, very real about this. So, in terms of playing Jack, I just played him straight. It was the words and the circumstances that made him gay. That's all.
One of the fan questions we had was actually one I wanted to bring up too. On the coming out, on the episode when Jack comes out, you have a scene with, I want to say it was David Dukes, right? That played your father?
David Dukes, yeah.
And just a really powerful scene in there where, your character breaks down, telling him to ask you again. How was that? Part of the fan question was, where did you kind of pull that emotion from for that scene?
Well,
and how was that?
That's personal. I'm not going to say where I pulled that from, but I will answer that it was a tough day for me. It was very, very difficult. That was the most emotional scene I've probably done to that point in my career. So it was a first for me. So for me, it was like, I don't want to push this emotion. It's got to be real. It's got to come from somewhere. So I just did a lot of thinking and tried to put the best that I could, put myself in a state of, just extreme sadness. That's it.
I think that's probably the best way to kind of put that. It definitely had that resounding just kind of effect in that one scene alone, kind of to sit with people. So I'm going to jump in here to another fan question. You mentioned working with Michelle. TJ Basham had asked the first question, but also asked, Jack and Jen were really bonded on Dawson's Creek. But behind the scenes, did you and Jen, or did you and Michelle kind of hang out? Was that kind of that tight bond you saw on screen?
Michelle and I are still friends to this day. Things are a little different these days. We don't talk as much, but yeah, back then we were very good friends back then.
Kind of shifting gears there a little bit. I want to jump into you did the Fosters,
Yeah.
which was another very big like ABC Family, another show that really kind of did some transcending there with adoption and that. How was it kind of jumping into that, jumping onto that show, playing the dad there, and kind of that whole role with that? How was that?
Well, that actually was interesting for me, that role, because it was really my first big dad role. You know what I mean? Let me tell you something. I'm 48 now, and I was probably 38, 40 when I started playing that. It's a tough transition for an actor, because I was always playing the young guy, the teenager or the young adult, and all of a sudden I'm a father. So it was really difficult to play. But The Fosters was a very cool show. I mean, they tackled a lot of different issues and situations, and a ton of storylines. I mean, it was the read-throughs on those shows were just
kind of looking there at another one, Life Unexpected. You did that one. I know you guys were looking at doing like a table read kind of thing a while back before just kind of life kind of changed up some of that plan. But how was that kind of show? You got to play it. You said like that young adult type character there, but how was that kind of experience with that show? And I want to say it was 2 seasons that it ran before.
Yeah, it was 2 seasons. I think we did 26 episodes. Yeah, that show was fun. I'm still friends with a lot of the guys on that show to this day. We shot that one up in Vancouver, and that was, I've worked a lot up in Vancouver, starting with Final Destination back in '99. But that was the first time I ever really lived there, full time. It was when we were doing that show. But I love the character. I love the story. The creator, Liz Tegelar, is fantastic. She's still killing it to this day. She was always fun to work with. And I don't know, I really wish the network would have given us a little bit more of a chance to get our numbers. So I thought that was a fantastic show. And anybody I ever run into is like, oh man, we loved Life Unexpected. What happened?
Hollywood.
I mean, it's tough. You don't get a very long chance to make something happen these days. It's not like the 80s where Seinfeld sucked for 3 years, and the network gives it a good chance, and all of a sudden it's one of the biggest sitcoms in history.
How do you think looking at where we're at today with streaming and so many different avenues outside of just the TV, world of that, do you think that's kind of changed in that regard, where is there more opportunity given, or has it become even more tight and harsh because of how much product is out there?
That was also a very strange transition for me, because, back in the day it was 5 networks and that was it. Now you've got all these streaming services, and, the content's fantastic. The schedules are weird. Netflix will do 10 episodes in a row and then call it a day. Networks, I'm used to a 9-month, season, 22 episodes. You get 3 months off, you do something else, and then you start again. It's kind of nice to do 10 episodes and then have, a half a year off and then do 10 more. That's fantastic. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of content, but there's also a lot of actors. Yeah. So I'm going to say, I feel like the competition is the same as it has always been, but I feel like there's a ton more content.
You mentioned kind of the Netflix part of there, and I want to, with Riverdale's been more on Netflix, I believe, and I think it's on WB if I'm right.
Hulu, actually.
Hulu, that's right.
Hulu. Yeah.
How is that series? I mean, you come in and you play a principal in that one. How kind of has that been? I mean, and some fan questions there is, are they going to keep seeing you on Riverdale in the role you were doing?
Well, yeah, I love Riverdale. I had a great time last year. They brought me on for season 4, and playing Holden Honey was just fun, hands down, just a blast. I love that guy, and I want to play, explore more of the principal. I don't know. I mean, we just started up season 5 actually this week. There's a lot of new rules in place because of everything that's happening, and I'm recurring, so I don't really know when they want me until like a week or two prior.
Ah.
So I'm hoping that I'm going to be in season 5, but I don't know.
And are they? I'm assuming they're taping in California with the way kind of things are spread out there.
No, they actually are up in Vancouver. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's a whole new set of rules for crossing the border right now. So it's complicated.
I want to work into some fan questions if we can, and then kind of get into some of your newer projects that you can talk about, or kind of where life is today and what you got going today, if that works. Let's see. That one is new projects. We'll jump to there. There was somebody here that says he knows you from the show. There's a bunch on here I'm going to kind of work out. Melissa Wrench says she wants you to know that you look so good and age has worked out well for you. Sarah wants to know, which cast member were you closest to with then and now? One thing I've learned is everybody always thinks like on shows, everybody's still like best friends and lives on the same neighborhood still.
Right.
So I guess with that, out of, when it comes to Dawson's Creek, out of those, who do you still kind of talk to? Who are you close with then and now? Current circumstances.
Mostly I talk with Katie and James, mostly. Yeah.
One person kind of wanted you to kind of play the what if game, where you think Jack and Doug would be today, and what do you think would have became of your sister if the show was like still today?
Actually, that the whole scenario has already been written by Doug and his wife, Dylan Neal. Yeah, we've been throwing it around to see if anybody's interested in making it. I'll tell you what would be. Jack would be the football coach of Cape Side High, living in Cape Side, probably on the creek. He'd probably be married to Doug, and he would be the sheriff of Cape Side. And it would be very much a Foster's type of situation where we've got a bunch of kids running around the house. And of course, we're raising Jen's kid as well. In real time, she would have been about 14 right now, so it would work out perfectly. So yeah, that's been well thought out. Good question.
So you mentioned that you guys that's being kind of pitched around there as an idea. I'm knowing you can't get into too much of that. Is that something that you hoping in the next years become something on one of the networks?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I would be very interested in doing. I know Dylan would as well. I don't know. We think it's a great concept. They wrote a fantastic pilot, and we'll just see if we get any bites.
How moving into the next one question here. Lori says you're from Westchester area in Pennsylvania. She's from that area. Wants to know if you ever go back to your old hometown.
No, I went to Henderson High. I have my parents, my family moved out of that area 10 years ago. So I have a couple of buddies from high school that still live in the area. I used to go back once a year for a golf tournament, but I don't do that anymore. So it's been about five years maybe since I've been back home.
How, I guess, what do you miss most about the show when it comes to Dawson's Creek?
Like I said, probably that camp type of atmosphere where you're just doing this hit show, but it's just completely out of the whole circuit. It's just like a normal job. You go to work, you're in this little town in North Carolina, and it's just it's a ton of fun.
What were another question there? Sorry, I want to make sure I get through some of these and still have time to be able to talk about what today is, and what the projects are you have. What were typical weekends like off the set? Up there
on Dawson's?
Yeah,
it was great. A bunch of us had boats and jet skis, and Wilmington's right on the water. So every weekend we would go to this bar called Dockside. We would load up with crab legs and burgers and everything else you could fit into a boat. And 30 of us, 40 of us, whatever, would just go out to what's called Masonboro Island, which is basically a big sandbar. And we would go out there and barbecue and have fun all day. It was the most fun I've ever had. Great times.
And then Craig Edwards wants to know how much you miss seeing him every day. I guess I'm assuming you know him from Dawson's Creek from kind of looking at some of the comments he had on there.
Yeah, I do. How much I miss him?
Yeah.
So much, unbelievably.
For people that are listening on that, who is Craig Edwards?
He's one of the guys that on Dawson's, one of the crew guys.
Okay. What is today, bring for you today with, what new projects are there? What, kind of how's life today? And
well, honestly, I'm just waiting to see what happens with Riverdale, basically. I mean, because of everything that's going on right now, there really has been no work. So everything is really just starting up actually this month. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't know. I'm kind of just waiting around like everybody else just to see what's going to go down, and hopefully everything, starts up soon in full so we can all get back to work here.
And where can people follow you? Where can they kind of keep up with you and what's going on?
Well, we've got my wife and I have a company called Terra Life Wellness, which we started a few years back, and she's a health and life coach. Deals with energy medicines and just stress and anxiety and things like that. And so we got the company that we're running right now, which is great. It's been fantastic. Other than that, I'm out in nature every day, mountain biking, fishing, hiking, whatever, just having a great time.
Is there social medias that the fans can follow you at?
Yeah, I'm on. I have an Instagram and a Twitter account. I don't really use the Twitter too much, but that's actor Kerr Smith. And then the Instagram account I do use, that's also actor Kerr Smith.
All right. Is there any last words you kind of want to put out there to fans that are listening, or kind of anything for today?
Just hang in there, guys. We're going to get back to some good TV making here pretty soon, and have some content for you, hopefully by the first of the year.
Well, sir, thank you so much for doing this interview. I truly appreciate it. I could probably ask you about every episode under the sun if possible and break down different parts there, but I don't want to take up your whole day. And hopefully that leaves more future episodes down the road if we, get the chance to have you back on. So
right on.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Show with Hollywood JDT and Stuntman Kirk. Want to stay in the know on all things sports, wrestling, movies, and TV? Follow the show on social media at The Show Podcast. If you like today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on The Show.